Do you feel like the people you're around, the places you go, and even the way your life is set up is distracting you and preventing you from reaching your true potential? One of the biggest gaps in your force field right now is most likely a friend group that is aimless and unmotivated towards the things of business and faith. In this video, we're going to uncover that and 3 other environment killers that are destroying your force field and how to strengthen it so that the fruitless things in life don't even make it to your doorstep. This is exactly how I changed and protected my environment, which allowed me the time and space to create millions in real estate without losing my faith, but growing it. The force field is a 5-layered protective system that I've built around my life to protect me from distraction so I can focus on my highest priorities. Layer 1 is guard your mind, and layer 2 is protect your environment. Our environments are simply a culmination of seeds being sown into our life. And when seeds are sown and watered, they must bring forth. So we have to protect our environment so we can control what fruit is being produced in our life. And what is the number one source and impact of seeds sown in our life? It's who we are around. And we're going to go straight to the book of Proverbs, the book of wisdom, which has absolutely changed my life to lead the beginning of this discussion. As it says in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. You may have heard this before, but you are the average of the 5 people that you share the most time with. From the way that you dress, the way that you walk, what you eat, what you consume, your speech patterns, your spending habits, and your bank accounts. All of these things are going to be aligned to the people that you are around the most. So the fruit in your life is going to look very similarly to the fruit in their lives. So choosing the wrong circle can have massive impacts on weakening, damaging, or even causing your force field to be non-existent. This principle manifested in my life in 3 very distinct ways. The first one was when I first joined the Air Force. I went to my very first base and I was lonely, and of course you look to establish a connection with a friend group very quickly. Thus enter into the picture Mike, Dave, and Dante, 3 really great friends of mine that I met when I was in the Air Force. And I noticed after hanging out with them that they wore skinny jeans and Vans and wore button-up flannels and rode penny boards and listened to a certain type of music. After a few months of hanging out with them, I found myself going to the mall and buying Vans and skinny jeans and a button-up flannel. And I went up to the boys and presented myself and said, look, we are the same. Thus confirming that our fruit is the same. And when we invest that time with people, we start to look and dress the same. The music that I was listening to was the same music they were listening to. The way that I was speaking and cursing and doing all types of different things was exactly what my friends did. And because our spending habits looked the same, I found myself going out to eat way more and spending money on things that I didn't need. And I just formed all these really awful habits, which dug me into a massive debt hole. Those poor habits in that debt hole then followed me into the next iteration of recognizing the environment that I was in and the fruit that was being produced. Because while I was in the Air Force, I broke my leg, had a come to Jesus moment, and wanted to put my life back together. And this is where I learned the principle of you are the average of the 5 people that you share the most time with. So I started putting myself in places and environments where I was going to cultivate the areas that I wanted to grow in. And thus enters the real estate circle in the very beginnings of that journey. So I was around some really highly motivated, highly successful individuals who were growing their real estate businesses, growing themselves on the personal side of things. And this exploded my growth because I was immersed in this environment. I went to as many meetups as possible. I talked to as many people on the phone as possible that would sow into me, and I would sow into them. Now, while the exterior things were starting to grow in my life, I was buying real estate, I was getting up early, I was investing in myself, increasing my knowledge and my basis of understanding. However, even though I was immersed in an environment with people who were successful, they had the money, the drive, and the discipline, I learned some very hard lessons in this season, and it nearly cost me my relationship with my now wife. And the reason is They were not Christ focused. Faith first, freedom follows. Matthew 6:33 exists for a reason, which says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. And we could add on to that 1 Corinthians 15:33, which says, don't you know that bad company ruins good morals? I had every intention of being the faith-driven person while I was in that environment because I was the average of the 5 people that I shared the most time with. Those individuals, while well-meaning, pulled me away from God instead of bringing me closer to him. And that thrust me into the next season of life where God removed me from that environment so I could actually learn and live out Matthew 6:33, which is seeking him first. So I moved back home to Ohio where I really didn't have many friends again, but I recognized I wanted to be plugged in with the right people who were going to sow seeds that produced positive fruit. I wasn't going to stay stuck in the same circle of sameness. I was going to grow into who God really called me to be. This process strengthened my force field. It kept distraction and people who were going to lead me astray far from me. Because I'm selective about who I allow to sow seed into my life, I'm now surrounded by people who encourage and edify me rather than complainers and lazy people and people who reject ideas just for the sake of rejecting ideas. If you are on a team and your team is apathetic and lazy and doesn't care about the game, how hard are you going to go? How much are you going to be encouraged to give your all? Where are you going to go as an individual, and where is the team going to go as a collective? So in order to apply this, we have to ask ourselves these questions. Am I living a life that is leading me to reach and stretch for the things that God has for me? Are the people in my life encouraging me, edifying me, or are they tearing me down? Are they bringing me closer to my relationship with the Lord, or are they leading me further from the Lord? And the action here is find people or groups who are living out the things that you want to achieve. And with your current friend group, you can say, listen, you can either come with me, or I'm going to have to go a season or multiple seasons or a lifetime without you. Now, we just talked about our tight circle, but the next step to this is identifying who and what are the voices that are leading our life. Different than those who are in our immediate sphere of influence, but who are the voices that have influence into our life? Let's start with the who. This is parents or family. When we start to make changes towards positive growth, the people around us are simply not going to understand. And we need to recognize that. For example, when I started having that mindset shift and I built my real estate business, or I was in the process of it, my parents encouraged me not to get out of the Air Force. Why? Because they had worked in factories for the majority of their life and they were receiving a pension. They thought, wow, just 20 years and you can get yourself a pension and then start your life. But in my mind, I had already committed to building the success in real estate that I wanted to achieve. In the Air Force and being in the service was not going to solve that. Looking back, what would my life have looked like if I had allowed that voice to influence my decisions? Well-meaning people who wanted to see me succeed could have potentially thrown me off track. I wouldn't have gotten out of the Air Force and potentially built our business to have $5 million in assets under management. And of course, I certainly wouldn't have had the freedom to enjoy the things in life, the freedom to go here or be there if I was still serving in the military, because you are owned by the military. They got a barcode on your butt, baby, and they can send you wherever they want to send you. And that season was so critical to growing me into who I am today. The next part of those voices that we allow to influence us are those online personalities. The people that we watch on social media and on YouTube, the people that we go to learn from. And the first thing that pops into my mind is David Goggins. He was a huge part of my personal development journey. Stay hard, go harder, you can do more. Your mind is weak. We have to callous our minds. I listened to Can't Hurt Me, and it just really invigorated the spirit of discipline and diligence in my life. However, I just saw a video recently of David Goggins. He was on stage and somebody asked him what he should do because his wife had asked for a divorce. He asked a couple questions and simply said, with more colorful language, "Screw her." Now, when we are Christ-centered individuals and we are looking to others for advice, David Goggins is extremely successful in strengthening your mind and personal development in the sense of pushing your body to limits that you did not know existed. However, this is also an individual that's been divorced 3 or 4 times. Not necessarily the best fit to offer marriage advice, especially from people who are looking to God to guide their lives. Seek first the kingdom and his righteousness. So we have to be careful who we allow to influence our lives. I don't watch nearly as much of David Goggins now because every truth, every principle that exists in the world that will lead us to having that positive fruit and protecting our environment exists in the Bible. We don't always have to go to people and voices because they might not be the right one for that particular purpose. Now the what. What voices or what influences are we allowing to sow seed into our life and what fruit is being produced? I'm talking about music, television, movies, and social media. We know that when we watch these things, we are being influenced, specifically our subconscious, which is way more powerful than our conscious mind, sowing seeds in the background. We have to ask ourselves when we are consuming these things, are we being entertained by sin? Is this what I am consuming leading me closer to God, producing positive fruit? Or could this be potentially sowing seeds of doubt and negativity and sin and not righteousness, but wickedness? Because the Bible talks about just a little bit of leaven is enough to ruin the whole batch. And I love how Jim Rohn puts it. What if your best friend put a drop of strychnine in your coffee? Well, what would happen? Well, you'd be dead. And that is what happens when we allow just a little bit of sin in our life. It deters and diminishes our force field from being the strongest. It allows distraction to enter into our environment. In my last video, I posted about the first layer of the force field, which is guard your mind. And I'm going to post that video right here. But in that video, I talked about the spirit of Jezebel in the book of Revelation, where the church was being written to about all the good things that they had going on, but they refused to reject the Jezebel spirit, the things that were just sins happening here on the sideline, out of their church. It's the same thing in our lives. Just a little bit is enough to throw us off course, and it will cost us. To illustrate this, I go to Romans chapter 10, verse 17, which says, "So faith comes by hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ." That means to stay locked in on the word of God and allow that to guide our decisions. Once I allowed God's voice to be the lead voice in my life, not the voice of others or influencers or even my own voice, but God's voice first. Faith comes by hearing and hearing through the word of Christ. Our business exploded. Over the last 2 years, we've purchased 80 apartment units, which is just absolutely insane. And it all came because I filter everything through the word, through the people that I allow to sow seed, to what I listen to and allow to sow seed. My mentor, Kirk, he has a great depth of knowledge, but one of my criteria was he needed to be Christ first, and he is, and he has led me towards the word. And most importantly, I am no longer a slave to sin when I allow God's righteousness to be the first place that I go to. This strengthens our force field and keeps all the sin, all the pestering of the evil one at bay, and we can focus on what matters most. In application, we have to set boundaries with the things and the people that are sowing seeds of influence into our life so we can control the fruit that is being produced. If we even get a hint of sin, a hint of wickedness in our life, we need to be quick to kick it out so we can continue to build our force field. That way our priorities will happen that much faster and we can grow into the next level in the next season that that God has already prepared for us. Another action item is finding and adding value to a mentor. Mentors are few and far between, but when you find one, you want to hold on to them. People who have found success, especially in this day and age, are constantly getting hit up by people who want to take them out to coffee and get something without having to give something. That is not the way that you have a beneficial mentor and mentee relationship, whether it's paying them money, doing something for them, or strengthening a weakness that they may have in their business. That person is going to be more than willing to invest time into you and help you grow. But you want to find somebody who is living the life that you would want to live 5, 10, 20 years into the future. And the last action piece to who and what is sowing seed is get the right information into your brain that is going to cast votes towards who you want to be. Nasty and perverted television and media and content that we are consuming is killing your environment. That is a dead environment. But to reinvigorate it is to sow and water seeds that are going to produce fruit for who we want to become. And the last part of controlling our environment, this is on the more tactical side, and I'm going to do an entire video dedicated to this alone. However, we have to make it easy in our environment to succeed. For example, our phones. Our phones are one of the biggest distractions in our life, and the dopamine effect and the science behind that is real. When I sit down at my desk, and if I were to instead start one of my harder tasks, I open up Instagram and I'm scrolling for 5 minutes, I'm giving myself a dopamine boost. And as we know with dopamine, when we get a dopamine rise, we will not just come back to baseline, but we will go the equal distance below baseline, which means it's going to take us time to get back up to that baseline. We need to put our phones away so they don't distract us from our highest priorities. The next tactical piece is controlling what does our workspace look like when we first come in. And I'm really working on this because it is not my strong suit, because my brain and your brain probably gets distracted when we have things from yesterday, things that are not important, or things that aren't even on our list of things to do today. And the best way to do that is to set our things out and set our area up the night before, as well as to plan out what are our most critical tasks for the following day. When I set out my clothes next to my alarm clock, that tells my mind, put your clothes on and then turn off your alarm so you don't feel the need and the itch to get into the couch and put a blanket over you because I'm cold. This is a smart way to set up ourselves the night before, and then to plan the day the night before. I write out my 3 to 5 most critical tasks that need to be accomplished, and if I accomplish 3 to 5 of those, I feel like I have been effective and moved the needle forward that day. These things create a huge strengthening bonus to our force field because we are limiting distractions. So if we take controlling our environment by who the 5 people we share the most time with, if we strengthen our circle, we are going to strengthen our life and cast votes towards who we want to become. And of course, if we control who we are allowing to influence our lives, the voices that are speaking into our daily existence, are they votes towards who we want to be, or are these votes of distraction and wickedness and us being entertained by sin, being lulled to sleep by the evil one who would only want to see us not walk in the path of righteousness, but be led towards the wide gate, the gate that everybody is flowing into? And then lastly, controlling our physical environment. What are we walking into when we step into a task? What are we preparing for ourselves to allow the placement and access, the time and freedom to live out and pursue the highest and best use that God has for us? If this video served you in any way, go ahead and feel free to watch Guard Your Mind. It is an incredible, impactful layer of the force field that will certainly serve you. May God bless you and God speed.